do that. It says preparing, but I'm pretty sure we're already live. I think that's how this works because I watched one of these and it was just me yammering away. And then I've got to click my feed. And I've got to mute my computer. Wait, I don't want to mute my computer because then I can't hear this. And then I click here so that I can see people. And then, oh, there we go. And then I mute this and we're live, guys. It's cool. Wow, what a trip to be back. It feels like it's been quite a while since we've done a live coaching show. And I think part of that is because leading up to this, well, we've had a month off. And then in addition to that, I've had scheduling mishaps. So either I've not been able to show up. That's kind of a neat place for that prism to be shining right on my face, isn't it? I'll move over just a smidge. You can hit that bookshelf back there. I either had to cancel or the person I was in conversation with had to cancel. And so whatever it is, we're back and it's kind of exciting. And I'm excited for you to get to meet our guest today. But before we do, we're in that part now where I yammer away a little bit. The thing throwing a prism is this smudging feather I have here from, I got this in Costa Rica, and it has a quartz crystal, which I believe is, well, I don't know what quartz does. I think it's a crystal that creates a lot of purity or rainbows or laser beams, possibly. So it could be any of those things. I'm up for all of them. Anyhow, I've moved it so I don't have to get smacked in the head with a rainbow crystal. I'm going to show you this little gift. This is what I got for my birthday. My parents got me a globe. This is very nerdy, I think, but I've always wanted one of these sepia toned globes of the world. And there's something very fascinating about spinning this and looking. Like, for example, did you know that there is a little country in South Africa right here called Lesotho that is entirely surrounded by South Africa? That's called an enclave. And there's also countries called exclaves, which I don't exactly know what those mean. I think that they're entirely outside of the country they're in, but they're not surrounded by something else. Anyhow, it's really neat to look through these and be like, oh, wow, look how huge Africa is. And oh, yeah, that's where Sri Lanka is. Anyhow, I'm very pleased with this. It feels really neat to have a globe. I'm one step closer to that study that I envisioned having as an adult. People were posting, what did you think was the height of sophistication when you were a child? And some people posted like Grey Poupon, the mustard. Other people posted, I don't think it was Celestial Seasonings. I think it was a brand of instant coffee called like Continental. And then they had Swiss Mocha and whatever. And for me, the height of sophistication is like having your study, your library, and it's filled with books and rich mahogany, and then like things like a sepia colored globe. So I'm getting there. I'm slowly making my way there. There's some books behind me. There's a sepia colored globe right there. I've got some hot tea. So I guess you could say we're pretty much getting incredibly sophisticated over here at Quiney headquarters. And I've got my Q, which represents my last name, which is pronounced Quiney for those of you that are curious. That's a nice, lightly steeped, creamy Earl Grey. Let's have a check and see what's going on this week. What do I want to share with you by way of beginning our conversation? Well, it's my mom's 70th birthday today. I don't think she watches these live coaching shows, but Mom, happy birthday. Happy 70th birthday. That's kind of a milestone birthday. It's very cool. I'm excited to celebrate it with her. I can't share how I'm going to celebrate it. You guys will be remaining in mystery about that because my brother and I have a surprise planned for her. We surprised my dad on his 75th birthday, and he's 7 years older than my mom. And so we're surprising her. She gets it earlier because otherwise she'd have to wait for longer and, blah, 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 blah. But I can share what we did for my dad, which was I told him, hey, you're going to get picked up by me and plan to have the whole weekend to spend time here. Hey, Ashley. And so what we did, I picked my dad up at home, took him to the ferry because we live on an island here, crossed the ferry over where my brother met us. And then we got into my brother's car and we drove down to Seattle to ultimately what we did was we stayed down there for a weekend and attended a Seahawks game, Seattle Seahawks, American football. And first of all, it's great fun, really great time, super neat thing to do, and cool for us to get to treat my dad to this, because I think this is the nature of parents. You treat your children forever. And so finally we got to pay it back in the most minimal way possible. Since then, we've made it a tradition. And one of the things that I think is funny about this tradition is I have a suspicion, it's a strong hunch, that part of what makes it so enjoyable to my dad is that he gets to explain the rules of football to Brendan and I. Brendan's my brother. So as I say that, I'm like, yeah, I like explaining things to people too. Okay, noted. In any event, so we're doing something cool for my mom's birthday. I'll say this about coming back. I can't remember if I shared this last week, but it feels really good to be back in a routine. Taking June off, we take June and December off every year, and I sat in the Vision Fast, and if you're curious about how that was, you can watch last week's episode where I talk about it in detail. But basically, the experience of my Vision Fast was really of being, I didn't have the experience of being deprived, but I was absent any stimulation. No stimulation from food, no stimulation from writing, no stimulation from reading, just sitting there. A little bit of stimulation from nature, but after a while, you kind of get used to that. And so what happened was that finished, and then we went away on vacation to a little place north of where we live. And I basically swung the pendulum all the way to the other side, and I ate all the chocolate in the world. I drank all the wine in the world. I played all the video games in the world. And so it feels really good to come home and to plug back into a routine. So getting up early in the morning, starting to write again, having regular calls with my clients, or to set up calls, because I don't usually set up calls during my time off. And one of the things I notice is that the first, we'll say, like week or so of this routine, it feels really bumpy, and I feel quite resistant. And it's a little bit like when you start an engine and it's cold, and it kind of like, it doesn't run as smoothly, and it almost feels like, is this how it's meant? Is everything okay? Like, it feels a little clunky. So that was kind of my experience this week. Was I'd sit down to write and I wouldn't want to, and I'd reach for my phone, or I'd load up Wikipedia, or I'd pull out something else, and hey Mia, hey Ashley, hey Jane, hey Alex. I'd keep wanting to distract myself. And the other thing that I noticed showed up for me was this desire to stop, it's 5:15, my stupid fucking alarm is going off, and I don't really want to get up. What am I going to do? And it was really tempting to just go back to bed, or to stop writing and just read Wikipedia, to tell myself, like, kind of to be in the conversation of, you're slowly getting back into this, but give yourself a break. And rather than do that, I chose to relate to it a little bit like that engine that's starting to warm up, which is when your engine is cold, when you've started the engine in your car and it's cold, what you do is you keep it running rather than turning it off and then trying it later to see if it's, maybe I'll try it later and it'll be running smoother, which it will if it's been sunny out and shining on your car. Just like I could stop, I could sleep in a little bit more. I could stop writing, even though, like, because it feels kind of clunky, and I could try a little bit later. And perhaps if circumstances align themselves, much like the weather might align itself, maybe when I try again, I'm going to feel a little more motivated. It'll feel a little smoother. But what I'm clear in all of this is I have a commitment to something. And my commitment, for me, I create that commitment as greater than my desire to escape the discomfort of having a cold engine, metaphorically speaking. And so I've been getting up and I've been writing what feels atrocious, doing bad writing. I've been working out, which I do every morning, and it feels annoying, and my body feels sore and old and crappy. And I've been pulling myself out of bed at 5:15, even if I didn't get to sleep till 12 the previous night. And the reason I do that is because then the next night I'm more motivated to go to bed. And that's actually, like, if you want a life hack here, a lot of people I know a lot of people want to take on a practice of getting up early for many, many reasons. And where we get stopped is we're like, oh, I'm tired, so I'm going to sleep in. And then what that does is you never have to adjust when you go to bed because you just sleep in and then you never change things. If you really want to get up early, the thing to do is really, without fail, commit yourself to getting up early. Your bedtime will adjust itself. It'll take care of itself because you can only do it for so long. You'll be like, this sucks. I feel horrible. I'm still committed to getting up early. You'll just naturally start to fall asleep sooner. So I've already started to feel that my what would we call that? Like my sleep impulse, the part of me that tells me like, hey, go to sleep. You're tired. You're ready to go to bed is kicking in. I noticed that bed is starting to feel more and more appealing towards 9 o'clock. And I noticed that come 5:15, when that alarm goes off, I'm in a greater state of wakefulness. So this is usually the way it goes. The first couple of days, it's the alarm waking me up starkly. I'm like, what's going on? Why are there stupid birds in my stupid room? Why is there a light on in my room? And then as time goes on, I start to naturally wake up around that time, right when the alarm starts to kick in. So we're slowly moving there. The engine is warming up. So that's been kind of the theme of this week, is letting myself operate with a bit of a cold engine, being in that warm up stage and writing some stuff that feels maybe not that great and putting it out there because I'm committed to continuing to publish and doing all of that stuff, and just really honoring the commitment that I'm committed to being. So that kind of brings us here. Hi, Ashley. Another Ashley. We have two Ashleys today. It's a double whammy. Let's drink a bit of tea all together. If you have some tea, let's have a sip. Damn, that's good tea. Oh, holy cow. Can you guys believe that it's already July? Remember when March took 1 billion years and then April took like several eons, and then like May and June were just through the door. I can't believe it's already July. I can't believe September is already approaching. And I can't believe that the way I'm thinking is like, well, any travel, any events that I'm planning are probably not going to be for at least another 9 months while we have this stuff go through. So fascinating. Salam, Mimi. Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam. Okay, well, let's bring our guest on. So Simran, let's get that camera on, get the audio on. Let's get you over here. I'll just chill. There we go. Hello.
Hey, Adam.
So let's talk. Actually, let's check. How was that just sitting in the green room for you?
It's amazing. I love to hear people talk.
Good. I like talking. We would get along very well. So let's see that you and I were talking about this before we even kind of went live, which was we almost met purely serendipitously. And I'm curious, actually, have you gone to any A-Fest kind of events or anything like that?
Yes, I went to A-Fest in Bali a couple of years ago.
Amazing.
It was my first A-Fest, and I was convinced I wasn't going to get chosen because, there's such a stringent application.
Yes.
And I just thought I was the bee's knees when I was invited into the hallowed grounds of
I'm one of the cool kids.
Yeah, it was amazing. The people were just out of this world, and great memories.
It's an awesome experience. You were not in Portugal then?
No, I didn't go to Portugal. I was in Bali.
We went to Bali for our honeymoon. It's such a cool, beautiful,
such a magical island. Really magical.
Yeah, one of the things I was really struck by, and this I'm sure has changed because that was about 17 years ago, shortly after the bombings. So the bombings had happened. I don't think there was really much of a risk, but they were still very much in the rebuilding phase. So it was interesting because it was quieter. It wasn't overrun with tourists. Everyone was incredibly gracious and grateful that we'd come, I guess, because, that's a big part of their industry. Yeah. And what I thought was super cool was you'd see like Starbucks or stuff like that, but then the strength of their own culture had kind of enveloped it. So there'd be like someone praying, making a flower offering. There's all those offerings all over the place.
That's what I love about it. You have like West completely juxtaposed with East. And you
Yes.
walk all over Bali and you're stepping over flowers and you see the traditional little touch everywhere you go. You can't forget you're in Bali. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's really an incredible, very unique island. And I love, at least, well, I love, don't love, but I think it's a good thing is for us to get there at least. I don't know how long it is for you, but for us, it's like 18 hours and multiple flights. And so there's something of like a pilgrimage in order to get yourself there, which is also kind of cool. I like that too.
Anticipation to make it there.
Yes. Cool. One thing before we start. So you said I was asking you like, what's the best gift you've ever gotten? Is a question I ask everyone. You said you had 3 hours to make your own perfume in France.
Oh my God. That was, I have to say, the best experience. I got it with, I don't even know, can't even call him a boyfriend, but it was like a trial run. And we went to France together. And, you know, he told me that he got this experience for me, and he said, oh, it's to do perfumes. And at this point, I was still in investment banking. I was completely out of my feminine, and I was like, oh my God, how boring is that going to be? And I was like, you know, suck it up, be gracious. And he dropped me to this place. I went by myself. And it's almost like going into a castle. It's in Ez, right, a little bit outside Monaco. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. It's like you're transported into another world. You're there, and I have a very sensitive nose. And so we get to make our own perfume. And there's like the organs, and they have champagne for you. And
Nice.
you're there with like a nez, and the nez guides you. And at the end, I made this most amazing perfume that even the woman said, we'll market this for you. It's
Sweet.
Perfumery Gallimard. I was like, no, this is for me. No one is going to use this formula. This is just my smell. And to this day, I have not had such an amazing gift as that.
Wow. Did you pick any particular notes? Like, do you remember like, oh, I want this note in this?
Yes, it was a lot of the woody notes.
Yep.
Some musk, some like jasmine, basically everything that I'm lacking. Your nose automatically pulls towards you because I have issues grounding myself. And if we get into human design later, we can explain why, but I need to always come back into my body. So it's interesting that the notes that my nose instinctively chose were the more grounding notes.
Wow, so cool. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about perfume, and the person that initially started, I guess the reporter or whatever you'd call them, was saying how they'd kind of dismissed perfume, like, oh, it's so stupid and what, but they went into like the whole history of it and how much goes into like the notion of notes, and then there's an accord, which is a sort of a combo, and then the overall, and like, I think our scent is such an evocative sense. It's so potent, and we step over it because it's just obviously always there until we smell something we don't like or we love. Right. And there's so much wrapped up into that like sense.
You have the bass notes. It's called the organ. Like it's literally like it's called the organ, right? So you have so many different notes in the organ, and when you speak about your olfactory senses, like especially in the work that I do, you know, we all have different senses that we use. Some people are using claircognizance, some people which is knowing, or some people use their sight, some people smell it. So when we say, oh, I smell a rat, you know what? Some people do actually smell when something is not right. So if we really get into our intuition and lead with what, you know, we're given as our strongest intuitive sense, it doesn't really lead us astray. And you can kind of, you know, even attraction, you smell attraction on people through the pheromones. So it's really inbuilt into being a human.
I love that. That's so cool. And this was not even a boyfriend yet, and he created this gift.
Yeah, I think it was meant to become that, but we were better as friends. Yes. But
that is a high bar. He set a high bar.
He's going to know that I love him because we're friends, and he's now married. But you know, like we tried, and it was just not the right chemistry. Yeah. But the best present ever.
So cool. Well, let's dive in. So what shall we coach around? Where are we gonna sort of take a look with you?
Well, I'm in this interesting junction in my life. We're also in very interesting times.
Yes,
And
we are.
I was meant to go to LA later this year. I had given up my apartment. And actually, I was in Bali in January. I had also done some plant medicine. And I was getting this message that this is your year of joy.
Mm,
So I was like, great, this is my year of joy. I'm going to leave my comfort zone, which is London,
yeah.
and I'm going to explore. I'm going to go on my Pluto line, which is LA. So this is about transformation, where your soul wants to go. And I'm going to just have an inside out experience. And so I put notice on my flat, was leaving my flat the 19th of March. A few days after that, the UK goes into lockdown. I can't fly to LA. I don't have a home. And I was like jumping around illegally because we're not supposed to be out, from
Right.
one Airbnb to another. Then I went to a friend's house and landed up at my uncle's place, which is where I'm now, beautiful in Surrey.
Looks that way.
Very, very grateful to be here. Where I've been hanging out for 4 months. But you know, when you always have at the back of your mind, this is not mine, this is just temporary. And yeah. I kind of know that I'm moving on. And I was trying to think about, where is the place I want to go next? Because gratefully, with the work that I do, I can be anywhere in the world. I just need an internet connection. And I like that freedom. Really fits my personality. And so where I am at the moment is, I am going to France. I'm going to Paris. I have great memories from Paris. I used to live there when I was 18. And I'm just feeling instinctively drawn to Paris. And I guess I would like coaching around, every time there's a big transition in life, we feel this sense of anxiety and uncertainty, which I'm coaching, well, not coaching, guiding a lot of my own clients on. So I think they will find this interesting, for me being on the other side, being guided by you, about, you know, how we manage this anxiety, especially in a time of such flux. We could go into lockdown again at any point. And also these niggling fears at the back that, you know, what if this fails, and what if I have to go back, and what am I going to go to? So all of these unanswered questions that a lot of us are grappling with.
Got it. So there's this move that's, when is it happening?
Next week.
Got it. Okay, great. So it's impending.
It's impending, yes.
Yeah, imminent and impending. And it sounds like there's some anxiety, some uncertainty, some fears just that are cropping up for you.
Yes.
So I'm curious, I totally get that. Like, that would make sense, right? Especially during this time. Yeah. Are they getting in the way of anything, or is it just that they're there?
They're there. I'm very conscious of them. I also know where they're coming from, right? Because I feel like I don't have to, but I find myself explaining myself to people who think I'm very reckless, because I think I'm very courageous that way. I just like fly off the cliff and I hope I land. Right. And I've done that a lot of times. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then I call it a growth experience. Right. And really, I can't really say I regret anything I've done, but I have experienced huge turmoil in other moves that I've done. I moved to Spain a few years ago, to Barcelona, pretty much like this. I just feel like I'm going to go, and I just showed up. And that was a lot of upheaval for me. And so I think I'm bringing this past traumatic experience into this one. And I don't really want to tinge, you know, my move with this, let's say, memory of the past. I would like to just start with a blank slate. I would like to bring in more the feeling of excitement and wonder and what is possible with this, and kind of somehow reduce the noise and reduce like this bad cop in my head of you don't have a plan, and what if this doesn't work out, and what are you going to explain to everyone if this doesn't work out the way you think? So I would just like to reduce that so I could just be open to the experience that is coming up for me.
Okay, so it sounds like your fears got, is it all right with you if we just label it all fear? Like anxiety, doubts,
fear,
whatever.
Anxiety, yes.
Yeah. So it sounds like your fear has a bit of a voice, and that voice is kind of speaking along the lines of like, what if this doesn't work? What if you fail? Whatever that means.
Right.
What are you going to tell people? Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like that is getting in the way of something you want to create. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that it's getting in the way of?
So I'm trying to create really my motto in my life, how I want to go forward, is just to be in flow and ease. So everything that I bring in my life, I want the vibration of flow and ease. That could be clients, that could be friends, that could be like opportunities of creation in my business, that could be like partners, everything. So my motto is I want everything to flow. I don't want to go against the grain. Mm-hmm. And this is not to bypass tough lessons if they come up, but I don't want to preempt them.
Right. So, but is there actually something being preempted here?
I guess I'm afraid. So some of the things that are coming up is, if we go into lockdown again, what is that going to mean? And, you know, how do I grow my client base more in France where I don't have the same network? And it doesn't have to be France, by the way, because I have global clients. But like just a small thing, a lot of the hands-on work I do, obviously I need to be face-to-face. And I would like to create a community, because in human design, if anyone knows about that, I'm a 2-4 profile. So I'm a hermit, but I also I get a lot of energy from my tribe. So I'm really, my tribe is very important to me. So I think I'm kind of feeling anxious about creating a nourishing tribe and environment. So I guess they're all the things that you get when you're moving and changing life again in very uncertain times.
Yeah, like, so what I'm hearing is that on the one hand, you're like taking a courageous, bold step. We could call it that. Like you're moving, you're heading to another country, you're going to live somewhere. You've got a past there, you know, that's been awesome, but still, nevertheless, right? It's net new.
Right.
And then alongside that, you've got some fears showing up, fears about how it might go, what might happen, what could happen, blah, blah, blah. And I guess the thing I'm not totally clear on yet is, well, one, I would expect to see some fears show up with that. You know, like even if, have you read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield? No. Fantastic book. He talks about, in The War of Art, he talks about this notion called resistance. And he capital R resistance. And he says, resistance's job is to stop us from moving from one sphere of spiritual expression to the next. And he's speaking in terms of like being an artist, writing a book, doing your next thing. But he says resistance only operates in one direction. And that is when we're moving to a higher sphere. So if we're like in Calcutta, working with Mother Teresa, saving the world, and then we're like, you know what? I think what I need to do is go and work in a call center for AT&T. Resistance isn't going to fight us on that. It's like, no big deal. There's nothing scary about it. Whereas if we were to go to the next level, resistance is going to fight us. It's going to drive up anxiety, doubts, et cetera, et cetera. So on the one hand, to me, it kind of makes sense that you'd have some fears like that kind of, yeah, totally. I get it. You're stepping into the unknown. And I have two things that are kind of coming up for me as I hear you. One is I'm curious, like, are those fears actually getting in the way of anything? Or is it just like, oh, I got fears and it's kind of annoying, because fear it yaps at us, but it's not really stopping me. It's just that it's there. Or is there something where it's actually blocking you, where you're like, if not for this fear, I would be doing this as well, and these other things would be happening?
Yeah, well, it's not stopping me, let's say. What it is doing is bringing up my thing about not being able to commit to things for long term, because I think it's my commitment stuff, and this has come up. I don't know if it's a bad thing, because I think I'm going along with my design and it's my growth. And it just seems that I'm very quick to move out of situations that don't feel good to me anymore. On the outside, this looks like a lot of chaos. And also for me, while I'm going through it, it's chaos. But it also, it almost feels like I have to do it, because like there's a big soul desire for me to have that experience. And I'm feeling this is how I'm going into my next move. There's a big soul desire. So even if I'm afraid, it's almost like I know I have to do it. It's important for me. Now, what I would like to do is to be able to, go all in without having one foot on the sidelines, to say, well, if this doesn't work, kind of having a plan B. I feel like I'm always having a plan B, because I'm always
like a hedge.
Expecting, a hedge. Always expecting things to maybe they won't work out.
Right.
So instead of going all in to say, yes, this is my next move, I'm going to be here for 10 years. I'm like, well, I took my Airbnb for a month, not 6 months. I didn't look for a permanent housing situation. I'm like, I'm going to see how it is for 1 month.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Please continue.
That's pretty much, I think it's this commitment that it's going to work.
Got it. So, okay. So let me make sure I've got that right, which is, and you used to be an investment banker, right?
Mm-hmm. I used to work on the trading floor. Yeah. So when you talked about hedging, everything is about hedging there, right? So make sure you don't lose. Yeah.
Well, I would imagine, even the pattern you're describing, I would imagine that would really serve someone in investment banking, where it's like, you got to jump in, you got to not be too attached to your position, but you also need to hedge so that you're kind of safe at the same time. You've got an exit strategy.
Lose what you have,
Right. Okay. So great place where this has actually served you. Yeah. And it sounds like that's kind of like a bit of a thing you're recognizing, like, oh, there's a place in my life where maybe it's not necessarily serving me. I've always got a bit of an exit, a bit of an escape hatch, a bit of a hedge at the same time. So what would this look like if you were fully, and I'm not saying you may not even want this, but if you were all in, fully committed, what would be different? What would we notice that might look different about what you're up to?
Well, the way it would look different is, instead of putting my stuff in storage here, I would move it all to France. It would mean that I would actually start to look for a permanent place as opposed to an Airbnb. It would mean that, at the moment in Europe, we still, even with Brexit, we don't know what's going to happen about the working situation, right? Nobody knows anything that's happening in the UK pretty much.
Right.
But we don't need working visas. So from the structure of my business, I can very much be as I am for the next few months very easily. So the fact that I haven't gone into saying, okay, what business stuff do I need? I'm not moving all of my stuff there. I'm taking one suitcase. I'm not looking for permanent housing. It means that I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see.
And is that a problem?
The way I feel at the moment, no, I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay. So let me provide us some altitude, and this is for everyone listening too. There's kind of like where we started was you're doing this thing and there's some fears showing up around it, which on, the way I relate to fear is that it's only a problem if it's really getting in our way. So if someone can't even get out of bed and they're just sort of shaking, well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
If someone's afraid that they're going to get rejected when they ask out a beautiful man or woman, and they're really committed to being in a relationship with someone they're really attracted to, okay, that's a place where fear is getting in their way. But, if it's like, there's this thing, I'm moving, I'm afraid, I've got fear showing up, but I'm still going to do it. It's like, oh, well, maybe the fear is not such an issue. It's just there. Kind of annoying, right? We have to learn how to be with it, but we don't necessarily need to resolve it. So that's where we started. And where I was looking was like, is there something Simran's up to that this fear is blocking? And I'm not hearing that so much, but where you went from there was, well, actually, from my fears, sometimes there's a little bit of a tendency to hedge my bets, to never fully go all in. And so we were looking at that. And as far as this move is concerned, it sounds like that's not an issue. So I'm curious, is there a place in your life where there's something you want for which you actually do see this is in the way? Or is it just like, oh, it's another thing that kind of shows up, but not a big deal?
I think a theme that I've had, and you know how we do one thing is how we do everything,
right?
Is this whole thing about hedging myself and not getting all into everything. I think it also filters into relationships. That could be with friendships, that could be in romantic relationships, that I think probably for past fear of having been hurt or trying to prevent being hurt, because everything is about getting away from being hurt, right? Pain.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
I feel like I'm never fully committed.
Okay. So if there was a place for us to take a look at that and just kind of explore it and see what there was, like where in your life do you think, man, if I could shift that out of the way, something I could really create a different, or I might be able to create a really different result that I'd really love?
I would say, if I look back, I feel like I want to commit and it feels good to be able to commit.
Yeah.
There seems to be something there. And I kind of know what it is, which is like the past.
Yeah.
That it's this, I think it's feeling betrayed.
Yeah.
Where we could speak about it in terms of...
Oh, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can now.
I think it's about betrayal, where this could have happened to me in friendships. It has happened to me in past relationships, and it's a very human experience. But I feel like I am very functional in managing my let's say my walls, my defense mechanisms.
Right.
And this might prevent me from fully, let's say, letting go.
Right. So I can relate to that. Like one of the things, I'm not putting this on you as what's there for you, but one of the places and ways that can show up for me is I'm very good at like dusting my hands of a relationship and moving on. So it's very easily for me to be like, that's dead. Now I go over here, which, on the surface, it's like, oh, Adam's never devastated. Right. And it's true. I left to my own devices, letting my ego and my blind spots work their nefarious purposes without me being able to see them. Yeah. I'll never be devastated, which is also, a bit of a problem if I want a really deep, intimate relationship with someone, because that's part of what comes of it.
Absolutely.
So I get it. You can see sort of, oh, I can be really functional, really almost sophisticated or high functioning in the face of this stuff. But I want to keep bringing you back to like, is there something in your life you really want for which this thing we're distinguishing is in the way?
Yeah, I would say, I'm not sure it stops me. I just think it stops the depth of relationship. I do have very deep relationships, I would say, with a handful of people. And these relationships have been cultivated over decades.
Right.
And it feels like the people that I have entering my field now, it's almost like I give you my trust, because I think it's too difficult to not being trusting.
Yeah.
However, if I feel that at any point that is betrayed, and remember, I know this is from my perspective, they might not intend that, but I just retreat. And it's not like I don't feel bad about it. Like I do suffer, but to the outside, it will seem like what you said earlier. Oh, she's just dusting herself off and being very kind of functional and moving on, almost like being, I don't know, maybe cold, which I'm not at all, but it's a functioning mechanism for me.
Totally.
Because
yeah, I get that.
I feel very deeply, which is why I'm also very hesitant to allow people in unless there's like 1,000 things of trust that you have to jump over, and that's not fair for people, and I recognize that.
Got it. So let me make sure I've got this. It sounds like, I mean, as soon as you said trust, I wrote that word in all capitals and put a square box around it.
Yeah.
Because I get that my experience of you is that's part of who you are as a person. What part of what you bring into any space is like a lot of just the innate experience of trust. And it sounds like, you know, one of the things that occurs to people who are trust is they are really attuned to betrayal, because it's kind of the absence, it's the breakdown of trust. So for some people that don't bring that same quality into the space, they're less attuned to it. For people that are really generous, they're hyper attuned to selfishness.
Right.
Me, not so much. It's not that I don't have the capacity to be generous. It's just not my strong suit. So I'm not hyper vigilant to the other side. So it makes sense. You know, one, there's a bit of hyper vigilance towards betrayal.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like part of the impact of all this dynamic, if you like, is it takes a long time. Like there's a lot of steps that must be built, evidence put together to trust. Or, you know, people are kind of like on the pedestal, but then as soon as they fall, it's quite a fall down, and then like splat, the relationship's done.
Gone, right? I mean, I've been working with those dynamics recently, where you know, again, I allow a lot of people in, and go super deep with them, especially with the work that I do. Yeah. Even with friends, we get super deep just because intuitively that's how I am. Yeah. And then because I think, as you said, I'm hyper vigilant for these kind of things. If I sense any kind of, let's say, what I would say is betrayal is like, betrayal can be a lot of things to many people, but when I sense some betrayal, I don't always confront, which is interesting. Like, it's like, I don't like to confront. I have a problem with like drama or arguments or anything that would make someone else feel bad. Yeah. But at the same time, I can't tolerate that in my field anymore. So what I usually do is I just disconnect.
Right. It's like an allergy. You got to escape it, like, get away from it. It
doesn't feel good. It's itching me. And sometimes I will try to hint at what the issue is. And a lot of the people I work with are intuitive. So they kind of know it. But it's like, if they still don't get what I'm hinting at, I will usually retreat. Like a crab, I'll go into my shell, I'll just move on.
Okay, got it. Let me speak to everyone listening for just a moment. So like, if any of you listening or watching have been like, dive into the commitment thing, or like maybe even just raise a finger for yourself to like, yeah, I wanted them to like dive into that, or whatever it is. And part of what we've been doing is really, one of the things that's really compelling for coaches is, as soon as a problem is presented, coach the problem, jump on the problem, fix the problem, solve the problem, coach the person. I can feel it in myself. You know, when we started talking about fears, or when we started talking about commitment, I'm like, coach, because everyone's watching and you're meant to do the thing at them. But that just is like, it's like someone that keeps fixing cars, but never really drives anywhere. We have to have a destination we want to go to. There needs to be a reason to actually address some of this stuff before we start to address it, because coaching is about getting us from where we are to where we want to be. And so that's why Simran and I have kind of been not diving in yet. That's why I've been not going those places, because I want to really get with Simran, like, what's the impact of this? And what do you really want in your life that this may or may not be in the way of? So that's kind of what I'm curious about, is like, what do you notice this tends to keep out of your life then? Because you're obviously like well put together, you occur very successful, very like, radiant and graceful, and like life seems to look pretty good, connecting with you. So I imagine you could kind of point to a bunch of stuff and be like, hey, this is all the stuff that is working. What does this stop you from getting? What's the impact of this that you'd like to not have?
Well, I think that's a great question. What you said before, just to speak a bit, the issue is never the issue. So I started with my move, then we went to something else. And this is typically even in the intuitive arts and probably with coaching as well, that the issue is never the issue. And then we drill down, and you can't really start to get your stuff until you uncover what is the underlying issue. And for me, this seems to be like trust, betrayal, commitment, all wrapped up. And this is really in the form of relationships, relating to people. And for me, I would like to have, let's say, okay, what is this stopping you with? I think it's really stopping me from real, deep, intimate relationships, whether that be romantic or whether that be on the friendship side. I'm lucky that, as you said, I'm like functioning on the front of it, and actually everything is good, I can't complain. I'm in a good place, but things can always be better. And for me, I would say where the area of growth is really everything to do with creation from, so let's say from an energetic point of view, a lot of the work I've been doing has been on my sacral chakra, right? About creation, about connection. And even though I can create things that don't go deep into my heart, because I'm really good at working with other people. When it comes to myself and my own creations and my own deep relationships, I feel that, yes, there's still some work that can be done on this betrayal or fear of betrayal, because betrayal is, it is what it is. Maybe it's just the fear that is keeping me from holding myself back and having boundaries. I think that's also because I've grown up in a way that I always wanted to be a people pleaser. And I've really come out of that, where I was like, okay, no, this is who I am. If you don't make me feel good, I'm not going to still be there. So that's also been a process for me where I've gone beyond always trying to say the right thing to the right people. It's not healed completely, because as I said, I can't always confront people.
Right.
But yeah, so that's like an area of growth for me. And I think if I could get past this, I could possibly deepen my relationships and be more discerning who I even have in my life.
Got it. So there's, like, thanks for saying that it's not all bad. It's like really good. And I find we tend to, this doesn't have to be the way it is, but we tend to seek out therapy when life's like a 2 out of 10, when it's bad. And often we're kind of drawn to coaching when it's like an 8 out of 10, where it's like good. And we're like, I'm getting tired of it just being good.
Yeah.
And so like we could look at all the ways this isn't a problem, and it's not even really a problem, but all the stuff you already are reliable to get. And it sounds like the kind of the edge, right? The stuff that exists beyond this edge is depth and intimacy in your friendships and romantic relationships.
Yes.
Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, if we were just to choose one of those two for us to look at as kind of like a place to kind of a placeholder for us to be, hey, it'd be cool to have it here. Which should we go with, friendships or romantic relationships?
Let's go for the romantic relationships.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
A very deep dive, and good luck on this video.
We will see. So how does this play out there? Like, what's the way this tends to go?
So should I speak about the past, or okay, let's speak about how I have been, because I'm not the same right now, but how I have been is how it usually has been in my life is I'm very fiery and I'm super, like, I'm very visual. I'm into aesthetics. So like I have Venus that rules my chart. And so it's always been about attraction in the beginning, right? Yep. Not necessarily compatibility.
Right. So it's like energetic attraction or physical, or both?
Energetic, physical, everything. It's just I have to feel like, or I have been in the past, I need the boom, like this, like
Yep.
fireworks.
You
Right?
know you're drawn to this person, and you know they're drawn to you
Yes,
on some level.
and you
Got it.
feel it chemically, intrinsically, it's there. And usually that clouds so much in the beginning because that's all there is, right? There's all this chemistry, and you're like wearing rose-colored glasses. And so I have evolved from that, I think, now to a place where I've done a lot of work on myself. I'm more conscious. I know pretty much what I would like to have in a partner. And where I am now, maybe this is because of coronavirus time, but I'm in a place where I would like to meet someone. Like I was seeing someone till earlier this year that didn't work out because of coronavirus, we were separated. And that it just was a good thing that it didn't work out. And so now I just find my place where I don't fancy anyone. And it feels really empty because, you know, it's not like I'm stopping myself, but I just don't feel that fire. And I don't know if like there's something wrong with me or what that is, that, you know, so much of the time I'm used to this fire.
Yeah.
And now I don't feel the fire. So I'm saying, well, what's happening now? So it's like I feel like it's a transition into something else. I'm not quite sure what that something else is.
Totally got that. So initially you feel the energy, you go towards the energy. I want to ask you some questions about that, but it sounds like now where you're at is not feeling the energy.
Right.
Great. So what happens, like, how does this dynamic you've been sharing, right? Like trust, betrayal, all of that, how does that play? Like, let's draw out the rest of that pattern. So you're energetically attracted to someone. You're like, hell yeah, feeling the fire, you lean in. And then what tends to happen?
So I think what happens is I'm in this like romantic, you can do no wrong period. And I am not really paying attention to how they really are, more how they make me feel.
Okay.
So in that moment, you know, it's possible to get carried away with the romance and the excitement of things, and with, I guess, the newness of things. And then I'm not always paying attention to people not following through with what they say, or promising things they don't follow through with, or you know, talking a lot but not following up with action. And then when I'm in it, that annoys me. And because I realize this illusion that I had created is actually not reality. And then I get disappointed and I disengage.
Got it. Let me make just notes here and then make sure I've got this. Disappointment, and I'm guessing disengaging is like ending the relationship?
Yeah. Yes. Because I'm also like, I have never been someone who can just be in things because I'm scared of being alone. I actually have always been like, I'd rather be alone than be in something that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah. You're pretty reliable on yourself, I got.
Yes. I feel like I'm the only one I can rely on.
Yes,
which is
that
not
totally
always a
makes
good
sense.
thing, right?
Yeah, well, and if what you've learned is that trust is not to be trusted, then that would be the perfect solution, right? Like, or put differently, there's a lot of trust, it sounds like, for yourself. You can trust yourself, but with other people, the way it's gone, the way you've learned based on the evidence you've gotten is, I can trust this person here, but I can't trust these other people. And the way we see that is, at least in romantic relationships, initial attraction. And there's this period of like, they can do no wrong. So they're kind of like pedestaled, all in, full trust, right? Oh, this is the one. Then you are kind of in that, and then they don't follow through in some way. So it sounds like there's like some kind of betrayal a little bit.
Yes.
And then you get annoyed by that. You get disappointed by that. And then you disengage at that point. Okay, got it. And then repeat. And I
Yes.
imagine that in doing that, that kind of also, as you go through that cycle or pattern or whatever we call it, it also reinforces that belief that like, yeah, you can't really trust people. Is that
Mm.
fair?
Even though on a high level, I know that that's not true, it's possible, but it feels like in my experience, there is something that is not, that has not really figured out this whole trust thing.
Yeah. And it's always my impulse here is to bring us into the lower level because, you know, even though we relate to our higher level as like the greater maybe or whatever, it's kind of like, oh, we're
Yeah.
spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right.
The spiritual being is a thing, but actually the human experience is as important and inextricably entwined with the spiritual part. So I really want to honor that part of you that's kind of running the show maybe a little bit, or that's arguing with the spiritual higher part that's like, but you can trust people. And then there's like, but no, I can't.
Yeah,
He's got some evidence, right?
yeah.
Is that fair?
That's very fair. And it just like, you've completely described how I'm always living, most of the time I'm living up here above my heart chakra,
Right.
and I'm not really grounded.
Awesome. Thanks for owning that. I really, you know, it takes some, in this day and age when everyone is posting a picture of them mountain meditating or, you know, a meme about turning the cheek or whatever it is, it takes some
Yeah,
courage to acknowledge our humanity, which also runs the show as much as their co-pilots.
completely.
So what have you learned to do to address this problem, if we call it like this cycle's a bit of a problem? What have you learned to do to deal with that?
So what I've learned to do is I've identified the areas in my life where I first started this behavior and how, because obviously I go into this with clients and I've
Right.
been, let's say, worked on myself. So I'm quite aware of where it's coming from, and it's kind of almost feeling out of control. I guess it's this control safety thing of I'm not in control of how other people treat me or handle me or other people, right? I can only just handle myself.
Yeah.
And I think this comes, I think, from probably childhood, where, and we all have wounding in childhood, whether it was amazing or not. But
Yeah.
I think it's a sense where I remember this time when we were moving, and a lot of my core wounding has come from there, moving from the UK to Hong Kong with my parents, where that was really traumatic for me. And it's almost like I felt I had no say, no power. It was a huge betrayal, you know, because kids don't really have a say, they just get taken, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt like, and it was very painful for me to move to Hong Kong. Like I had to go through a lot of bullying and things. So it was traumatic for me. And I think probably from that moment down, at some level, I just didn't trust people.
Right. So that's where it came, like you kind of came by this honestly, right? It's not like you just decided one day,
No.
I'm not going to trust. It's not like you got hit by a bolt of lightning or bitten by a radioactive spider and then suddenly stopped trusting. It's like you had evidence, the world trained you, so to speak,
Right.
in this. And so it sounds like one of the things you've done to kind of address this pattern we've been drawing out is look to where it got created.
Right.
What about more like, so I could imagine being a like, you know, a successful, talented, radiant woman like yourself, that you might want a partner, someone to share all of this with.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine then that this pattern would be a bit of a problem. Like, that's in the way a bit. And so I'm curious, like, as humans, and especially when we're thinking people, we try to solve it. We're like, that's a problem compared to what I want. So what sort of solutions in the moment have you tried to craft to overcome this?
So what I've done, or what I'm doing, is, you know, I'm quite clear on the type of person I would like to be with. I'm quite clear on what I have to offer to this person, because it's not just a one-way thing. I'm quite clear on what I'm not able to give. I'm also clear that I can't always go by my initial instinct, which is what I've been doing in the past. It's not always, you know, this initial chemical reaction, which has been running the show for so long for me, that I just really need to take a step back and allow myself, let's say, to get comfortable with the person rather than the chemistry. And instead of wearing rose tinted glasses, because I'm really a romantic at heart, maybe quite idealistic, right? And I think it's this whole thing that you said about coming down to earth, like how do people relate, like how much time do they actually have, do they even live in the same country as you, you know? And whereas none of that was important to me before, because of experience, I've learned that if you want a relationship, maybe they shouldn't be living on the other side of the world. And, you know, like, look at how they are in their daily life, and do they actually have time? And look at the relationships in their life, and look at their business life, and like, look at all the areas of their life, and not just how they treat you in that one moment that you're on a date or you're on a holiday, because life is about not just your relationship with them, but the whole gamut of what makes up our life experience. So I guess I'm a lot more cautious, and at the same time, I have to say I've not given up, but surrendered to the process, that because I'm very clear with what I want, and I really feel like I have done a lot of work that's never going to be done, but I think I've done a lot, that the right person will come along when I'm feeling grounded. And this is why I started with the fear of the move being the most important thing, because I thought if I'm feeling grounded and happy and safe, then the container is right for that person to come in.
Right. So it sounds like the biggest strategy is when that, and like, to really be cautious and to kind of assess a lot. There's a lot of assessment that starts to happen when that energy is felt.
I wouldn't say assessment, just more like observation.
Sure.
Whereas before I would jump right in. Now I'm like, okay, let me watch.
Right. But I'm hearing there's almost some critical thinking in it. Like, is that? Right. There's like some questioning to an extent. Yes. Okay, got it. And what do you notice that does to the energy? What's the impact on the energy when you're doing that?
I think it's very new for me because I'm not used to that. It feels a little bit, doesn't feel comfortable, because I like to jump right into things, into everything, everything in my life, work, play, everything. So it's really a learned behavior that doesn't come to me naturally. So it feels a little bit like walking with like bricks on my feet.
Which I would imagine would detract the energy a little bit. Like if part of it is like sailing off while you're holding a balloon, this is like cementing your feet onto the ground.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Well, so that
midway, I think.
What's that?
It's finding the midway that I need to.
Yeah. Well, it sounds kind of like that. You know, it's like the one side of the pendulum is like, this is going to be amazing forever, and they're never going to let me down. And then they let you down and your balloon pops and you fall straight to the ground. Right. And then the other one is like, well, I'm just going to wear these cement shoes. Your balloon has no impact on me. But then to your point, you're not really feeling the fire.
Right.
There's not much. It's kind of like, I'm safe. There's no risk of falling to the ground. But at the same time, there's no risk of falling to the ground. So you're not able to take off.
Either. Right.
Yeah. So we're starting to get towards the end of our time. So I'm going to put a few things on the table and see, just let you sort of tell me how they land with you. But one of the things I really notice in this is that there's kind of a real significance around, it's like who I get you are innately is like really giving yourself over to whatever is happening. We could call it trust, or I like the way you use romance. And one of the things I really I got from that is people that innately bring a lot of trust into the space are also very romantic, because you don't start the game necessarily like this is how this person sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, look at all the amazing stuff, and you can kind of see absent all of the defenses, which is romantic. It's like, oh my God, all of this stuff. And part of romance is that romance is to some extent fantasy, right? Like life is romantic, but it's also cruel.
Real.
And, you know, it's everything. It's all of that stuff. And so what I notice you can't seem to be with is like that part of people's humanity that creates like an experience of betrayal or letdown, of disappointment.
Correct.
When that happens to you, what do you do?
I just retreat.
Right. Like, see you later. Or you like, the other thing I heard you do is you like hint around it.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of like acknowledge, like rather than just sort of like, oh, that really hurt, or I was really left disappointed or hurt by that.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, what do you notice about that as far as like your role in creating or blocking intimacy is concerned?
So that's actually quite interesting, because depending on the situation, I behave differently. So with with romantic partners, I actually do say it. Ironically, I'm really careful how I say it, but I always say, this makes me feel X, Y, Z, just to open up the discussion, because maybe they were not aware of it. Now with friends, I seem
Can I stay with you on romantic conversation then?
Yeah.
So they disappoint you.
Yeah.
You say, that really disappoints me. Yeah, what happens next?
Really bad, that blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens next?
It's almost like, so in the most recent one, it was almost like they say that they're sorry, but then they do the same thing again.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it sounds almost like in sharing that, the hope is that then it's going to stop happening. They won't keep disappointing you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is, first of all, I so get that. Like part of my can't be with, and for just to be clear, like all of us, there's who we are innately. At least this is the model I've created and work with, is like we have these qualities of being that are innate to us. And part of what you bring is just trust. Almost in like a childlike sense. You know how a child, you're like, let's do this, it's going to be awesome. And they're like, fuck yeah, it's going to be awesome. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But it also, there's a vulnerability to that, which is like, the punch you don't see coming and you don't brace for hurts you the most.
Totally.
And so I really get, there's like a purity about you, Simran. And then also that sets you up a little bit.
Totally. Because I'm like, oh, yay.
This person's going to be amazing. And then, they got me again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it kind of occurs like the lesson you've been learning is it's not worth it. And I can't keep exposing myself that way. And then either you hedge yourself, so you only half expose yourself, or you kind of like give yourself over, but then, you know, they said they're sorry, but that means they're not going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the path I kind of see for you, or the thing for you to be with, is really to really be intimate with people. This is the bad news. I'm making an assertion here, is to be willing to let them let us down over and over and over again. And for us to work ourselves out so we can get like, oh, that's not a deficiency in them. And it's not a deficiency in me. It's more that like the gate that we have to walk through if we want to create love is heartbreak. You can't fully love something if you're not willing to be heartbroken.
Right.
It'd be weird, right?
Yeah.
And for you, the gate of trust, if you want to have that experience of being fully expressed in the trust and purity that you are, which includes that delicious experience of like, oh my God, it's amazing. And the romance that you bring into the space, it's going to require a willingness to keep walking through the betrayal and the letdown that can come with that.
Right.
The most romantic people that develop the capacity to ongoingly be romantic are also the ones that are willing to sort of like have that shattered a little bit and then like deepen from there and then recreate that and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So before we go into like what you might do around that, how is this landing with you?
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. And I also feel that has been a repetitive cycle to me. It's almost like people think I'm a glutton for punishment because I just am a romantic and I'll fall for it again and again and again. not fall for it, but I like to be romantic. So I want to be open and I want to be trusting. And that's how I want my relationships to be. But to your point, I need to also understand the humanity of people, that, including myself, that sometimes people are going to make mistakes. And you just have to find that person that you're willing, or because it has to be meeting both ways. It's not like I just keep shoving something under the carpet just to be romantic, but give and take a little bit more, I would say,
Yes.
rather than just going into my own cave and saying,
Yes.
oh, this is not what I thought it was, so let me leave.
Yeah. And then how do I protect myself from getting into what I didn't think it was?
Right. Yeah.
So I've got a few practices for you, and I want to be super clear, like, one conversation, we can kind of start to get under the surface and find something and create some practices, but this isn't going to magically solve this or anything. It's just going to allow you to keep deepening your own inquiry.
Yeah.
Cool.
Perfect.
So, the first thing I would have you notice is you've created some pretty good strategies to avoid having to confront or be with the betrayal part, right? The letdown.
Right.
I would, as a starting point, just notice yourself doing those strategies.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, would it serve you to write these down?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So be with the betrayal.
Yeah, and even before that, just notice how you avoid it. And like, to your credit, this is something you shared, like this began early on, as does most of our stuff. So it's like, this is how old are you now?
42.
That's crazy. I would have thought you were like 32. Anyhow, well done. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Yeah. So I'm 41. So we're around the same point.
Same. Yeah.
And, if you think about it, it's like, oh, wow, this is a strategy that's been honed for 40, maybe you put this together when you were around 4 or however. So it's like, oh, I got some practice around this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not even a bad thing, right? It got you to here. It's just now you want something beyond this. So it might require something new. So you can start by just noticing, like really going, it's like if I tell you, go and notice red cars. Mm-hmm. The first reaction people say is like, great, I know Pete has a red car and I know there's a red car down there. So that's great. I also want you to look for where you don't notice that there already are red cars. So like discover them as opposed to look for where you already know they exist. So it's kind of like you're going about your life and like, oh shit, I'm avoiding that letdown betrayal thing right here.
So discover where I'm avoiding betrayals, let's say.
Where and how. Yeah. Oh, look at this strategy. I'm hedging what I'm saying in the conversation so that I don't have to be with the full brunt of that feeling.
Yeah.
And then the other part is to like be with it. And because the context of our conversations is relationships, mm-hmm. I would say is to like really really hang out with people in that feeling. So like, I love that you've got kind of like a one-off practice with someone where you're like, hey, I really feel hurt that went that way. And then see if you can stick with them in that awkward discomfort, like the uncomfortable feeling of being let down, mm-hmm. and stay with it longer.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean you have to seek out people that are going to betray you, because my guess is you're probably doing that too, because that's what we always do, right?
On a subliminal level, because I did stick with it for quite a few months, and then I just realized he's just not able to.
Yes.
And so I have it. It probably goes to, why is this present in my field, for sure, and being aware of that.
And that's the challenge of this stuff, because what we'll do whenever there's a thing we can't be with, two counterintuitive but totally make sense things happen. One is we create really good strategies to totally avoid letting it show up in our life, and the other is we completely create it in our life. Yeah. So I'm asserting you're probably to your point, right? You're like, oh, I fall in love, or I get romantic ideas about someone across the country, which mm-hmm. is almost like a setup for this. Totally. So that's the other thing you may notice, is just notice how you're setting yourself up for it, and notice how you're avoiding it. Yeah. And the thing that I would have you really going towards is like, how do I create more intimacy? So like when you share like, oh, that really hurt me, that's creating some intimacy.
Yeah.
And when you share, I really feel like I'm falling into you and I'm scared that you're going to let me down, that's creating more intimacy.
Oh, wow. The moment you said that, my stomach was like, oh, I don't think I could do that.
I know, me too. I'll share with you like when I start working with someone these days, like the process leading up to creating a client, I quite enjoy. And there's a real thing for me that's really terrifying when we say yes to each other, because what I know will happen there is now it's real and we're committed. And I know that we're going to get more intimate. And I'm really scared because I know I'm going to let them down and they're going to let me down because we're just humans.
Yeah.
And like you, I don't love that.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I want you to be perfect and I want me to be perfect. And I was just cleaning up a mess with someone yesterday where I'd created this, like I'd stepped in it with them and created a mess. And I was just reflecting like, boy, I never like going into these calls where I need to clean up a mess I made, but on the other side of it, we've deepened.
Yeah.
And so I really think like there's a beautiful path for you, Simran, in be like letting yourself be let down and then like sharing with that and then staying with them and just noticing this stuff as it plays out.
Yeah, that's really powerful that you shared that. So thank you. You're totally right that we think that if we guide people, we have to always be perfect. But no, we're not. We're just humans, and we're going to make mistakes. And I'm going to try it on where in the past I might have said, okay, I'm just going to block, delete, move on. Now, before I do that, I will have that conversation and say, hi, I really felt bad when this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying I've never done that, but yeah, I try to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, the game is like be 1% more intimate as opposed to avoid what you don't want. Right. So like that's what all of us do as humans. We're like, I don't like this thing. I'm scared of this thing. How do I avoid it? Rather than like, I get you crave an intimate relationship. It's part of who you are. You just are intimacy. Yeah. And so your attention, what'll move you forward is to put your attention on the thing beyond what's scary. I really am committed to creating intimacy. I'm going to be 1% more intimate in this breakdown and see where it takes us. And then, the next, and then the next. I want to do some debriefing and I'd love to acknowledge you before you do that. And before we go there, is there anything left sort of on the table for us to have this conversation be complete?
No, I think this has been really interesting how I started out with a move to Paris and we got super into intimacy and relationships because this is the area I was like, no, we don't need to go there. And it always goes to your weakest point, right? And it was also quite, I think it was also, it makes me feel very vulnerable to even speak about this in public, because also I work with people on this, right? So I always feel like, oh, you're a fraud if you haven't got it all right. But I've then gone past that no, I'm a human. And just because I haven't got it all right doesn't mean I can't help you. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself. So you just help bring that out, like be vulnerable and let it all hang out. And some people might benefit from it.
Totally. The metaphor I think of for, I think of it for coaching, but I think really most helping professions is that it's of like me and the client or me and my coach running, sort of scrabbling along rocks. Yeah. And they're like sometimes a couple feet ahead of me, sometimes half a foot. And they're just like, oh, watch out for that rock. I just stumbled on it. Like they're in their work. And our job is to be progressing in our work, meaning we're getting supported. We're not just pretending we've got it all figured out. Right. And to be a work in progress, meaning we share the work as we do it rather than like as it's all done and clean and complete. So I really want to acknowledge you, Simran, for like that vulnerability and for what it speaks to about the trust and intimacy and like purity and truth that you are innately. Like there's I can imagine in your presence, a lot of people just feel like, oh, I can just share myself. I don't have to guard. I don't have to keep this stuff from someone. And your willingness to go there is like, it's just beautiful. And it's cool because, I never know I'm on those rocks with you. I don't know where the fuck we're going to go. And are we going to talk about what's scary, or, oh, okay, we're going over here. Okay, cool. Let us go there. So thanks for your willingness to release, surrender, to like do that. And I really honor the trust you've put in me in this as well, to let us co-create this.
Yeah,
beautiful work.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a fun experience, like uncomfortable and fun at the same time.
Yes, of course. So let's do a little bit of debriefing. Like, I'm curious, you kind of mentioned a little bit already. Is there anything else you're present to, or that you feel called to like speak to or point to that came out of this conversation? Or like, oh, we went there and, that was surprising, or?
Yeah, just how, again, the issue is never the issue. And
Yeah.
your deepest, I think your deepest heartfelt desires are always going to be at the bottom of everything that appears in your life. And this is what my conversation with you showed me, that we can't compartmentalize our life. And if we start working on one part, all the parts are going to be affected.
Yes.
So even though I think that I'm looking for a home and safety and security, and it's about my move, actually, it's about being safe and secure with myself and my most intimate relationships, which for me, what life is about.
Yes.
So,
I'm one of the things I'm really present to is trust has always been a thing for me. You and I have very similar stuff. Like, I'm very brilliant. I get the sense you're quite brilliant too. And what I notice a lot of brilliant people do is that I can trust this guy right here. You people are soft and squishy and tend to let me down and don't do what I think you need to do. So I'm not going to trust you so much, and never even mind spirituality. That gets pushed right out of the frame for a long time. And for a long time, I kind of, as I started to dismantle all that and create a relationship with trust, I thought it was trusting that things would work out however, no matter what. But what I'm present to these days is that trust is often trusting that I can be with whatever shows up. Right. I am strong enough to be, and that doesn't mean to resist breaking. It means like, even in my most broken state, I will come through on the other side. And from that kind of trust, there's such power, because I can be with people and they can let me down. I still don't love it, but they can let me down and I can fall to pieces, and then I can kind of deepen from there and come back to what's next. The world can explode into COVID and racial riots and all this, and I can be with that and feel my pain and the empathetic suffering and all that, and be with that.
Yeah, exactly everything you said, like soften into all of those hard bits where I have been prickly before,
yes.
As a way to defend myself. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to completely break down, and then I'm just going to wake up the next day.
Yes. The other thing that this conversation kind of reminded me of is when I first started training as a coach, I was very righteous, rigid, and I had everything figured out, I got that exposed pretty quick, thank goodness. But one of the questions right at the start, someone asked me, it was like, Adam, have you ever been devastated by love? And I was like, I don't even know what that would mean, so I'm going to say no. Like, I was so contained and protected. There's a saying that boats are safe in a harbor, but that's not what they're for. And your heart is safe if it's protected, but that's not what it's for either. And I'm really grateful to you, actually, for like that reminder to keep leaning into the devastation and to let people to love so openly and vulnerably that people can really devastate me. And that's like a beautiful life for me.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a lover in that way.
Yeah.
I like fall right into it.
Yeah, it's so clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone that tuned in. It's great to have you guys back. Mia, Alex, who else do I want to shout out to? Daniel, Mimi, Ashley and Ashley. It's great to have you guys with us. Oh, Ashley, I hope I get her name right. Ashley Avinashi says, yay, Simran Sondhi, so lovely to see you on this side of the world.
Valley.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So thank you everyone for being here. It's really a treat. I want to plug the Forge before we wind down, which is the program Bay, my wife and I run for 9 months this year, from September to May, for coaches and leaders. We have one spot remaining, and we know it'll fill. if you feel called to that anyway, please reach out, not so that you can be convinced, not so that you have to do something, but because the conversation's fun and it's really cool to get to be in a conversation about creating possibility together. And that's all we would do. So if that is something that inspires you, reach out, let us know. You've seen me in the comments. Mia's going to be there with us. So it's going to be an awesome year. Love you. Thank you so much, Simran. And bye for now, guys. Take care. And now this is the awkward